Yesterday, we talked about how dialogue looks inside a text. We took a look at an example passage and we found the dialogue in that text. Remember, dialogue is the word for when an author is using the exact words that a character says. We briefly or quickly talked about how that dialogue should look when punctuated properly in your writing. Today we're going to focus a little bit more on how we can use punctuation in dialogue to make sure that our writing looks just right. In order to punctuate dialogue, you need two different things. You need commas and quotation marks. Let's take a look at the placement of commas when you're using dialogue in your writing. The first example on the anchor chart to the left says, Tom yelled, "Run to second base." Notice that the comma is in between what we call the speaker tag and the dialogue. The speaker tag is the part of the dialogue that tells you who is talking and how they are talking. In this example, Tom is talking and he's yelling. So the speaker tag is Tom yelled. The part of that Tom is actually saying is run to second base. Tom doesn't yell, Tom yelled. He just yells, run to second base. You'll notice that the comma separates the speaker tag from the words that the character is actually saying. Tom yelled, comma, quotations, run to second base, end quotations. The comma separates the tag from the words spoken, and the words spoken are inside two different quotation marks. Let's look at the next example. Down towards the middle of this chart on the left. You may not go to Libby's house until you clean your room, my mom said. Notice that this comma still is separating the speaker tag, my mom said, from the actual words that mom is saying. You may not go to Libby's house until you clean your room. The comma is right in between the actual dialogue and that speaker tag. You will notice that that comma is actually inside the quotation marks. So when the speaker tag is at the end of your sentence, make sure that that comma goes inside the quotation marks. Here's an example. The girl asked, comma, "Is this your garden?" The comma separates the tag from the quotes. What the girl actually asked is inside a pair of quotation marks. He replied, comma, "Yes, this is it." The comma separates the tag from the quote, and the words that he actually says are inside a pair of quotation marks. "You are going to get nice and clean," Penny said. Notice the comma is inside the quotation marks, but it's still separating the tag from the actual words said. The actual words said are inside a pair of quotation marks. "Brush your teeth," Mom ordered. The comma separates the speaker tag from the actual words said, and the actual words said are inside the quotation marks. Quotation marks are there to show direct speech. That is the exact words that a speaker is saying, the words that are actually coming out of their mouth. They look like this. There's usually one at the beginning of the words of the speaker and a pair of them at the end of the words of the speaker. You have your two parts, the speaker tag and the actual words that are being spoken. Looking at the example at the bottom, you'll see that the speaker tag is in blue and the actual words that Amy said are in yellow. So Amy declared is the speaker tag, and I'm happy when there's pasta on the menu is what she's actually saying out loud. They help us understand who's speaking and how they're speaking. So Amy declared, I know that Amy is speaking, and I know that she's declaring, which is a pretty strong way to say something. The actual words are inside quotation marks. The first word begins with a capital letter, and the punctuation is used before adding the closing set of quotation marks. So here we start with a capital letter. The words are inside the quotation marks, and the punctuation at the end is also inside the quotation marks. The exclamation point comes before the closing quotation marks. You can show direct speech by using these quotation marks. Make sure that you put that comma in between the speaker tag and the actual word said. Here's a great example. Amy stated, comma, quotations. We should write less tests. Quotations. Let's take a look at how this might look on a test. You'll be given a question, which one is correct? And you'll have to read through the answer choices to see which one is punctuated the right way. I'll do this one. Which one is correct? I'll check the mail, I offered. In that one, we have the speaker tag separated from the actual part being said. We also have quotation marks around the part that is actually being said out loud. And that one looks pretty good to me. Let's look at the second one just to be sure. I'll check the mail, I offered. That one looks pretty much the same. We've got our quotation marks at the beginning and the end. Our comma is separating. The only difference I see here is the exclamation point. I don't know that you would say I offered really strongly. So I'm not sure that that exclamation point really makes sense. I'll check the mail, I offered. We have quotation marks around what they're actually saying, but we're missing the comma in between the quotation marks and the speaker tag. The best answer choice here would be A. Let's look at this one together. Remember that you need to pay close attention to where the quotation marks are and where the comma is. Which one is correct? She asked the class, who's finished? She asked the class, who's finished? She asked the class who's finished. Which one of those has all of the correct punctuation in the correct place? Pause the video until you know your answer, and then press play when you're ready. The correct answer here is B, because B has a comma separating the tag from the actual words said, but it also has a question mark that ends the question, who's finished? Go ahead and read this one to yourself. Make sure you're paying close attention to where the comma is and that it's separating the speaker tag from the actual words said. Also, make sure that the quotation marks are around the entire thing that the character is saying. Pause the video until you know your answer. The best answer here is going to be A. The comma separates the speaker tag from the quote and the actual words said, and the actual words said are I'm home, and the quotations start before I'm and after home. In answer choice B, we're missing a comma. In answer choice C, we're missing our closing quotation marks. So A is the only choice that has everything that we need. Let's take a look at your digital narrative writing notebook. Today, we are going to go back into our draft and make sure that now that we know how to punctuate dialogue, that our dialogue is punctuated correctly. I put dialogue into 2 different places in my writing yesterday. One of them was here, where I said, my sister's friend said, did you know that you can feed the giraffes? Do you see anything that I'm missing from that sentence? I'm missing my comma. I forgot to separate my speaker tag from the actual words being said. This is the other place that I put in dialogue. Do you see anything wrong with the way that that's punctuated now that we know how to punctuate dialogue? I didn't use my quotation marks correctly. I didn't actually say, I turned to my mom and said. The only words that I actually said were, can we go to the giraffes first? Your first job in writing today is to look over your writing draft and make sure that you have punctuated your dialogue correctly. The second thing you'll need to do in your notebook today is to take a look at slide 30. On slide 30, you're going to type some examples of how dialogue would look with the tag at the end of the dialogue and the tag at the beginning of the dialogue. You can go back to slide 29 to look at some examples to help you out with that. But on slide 30, you're going to write your own examples. You could use examples from your actual draft if you would like. Then continue working until you see the stop sign. Today's task is to finish slides 29 through 35, and also edit the dialogue in your writing notebook.